I want to just give you, I'm going to do a timeline really fast. I'm going to do it in about 2 minutes because I want to, and so you're really going to have to pay attention to this, okay? To what I'm about to say. Look, I'm just going to go line by line. So there was this, don't read that. You're gonna read that and you're not going to hear me. I put it up there for me, actually. So you can put it up, but just don't read it. Listen to me. There's this dude. The dude, Reza Shah Pahlavi. Pahlavi, you say? Pahlavi? Pahlavi. Okay. And he was a military guy, and he staged a coup in 1921, and he took over Persia at the time, okay? And he enacted a lot of changes, a lot of reform, man. Industrial growth, built a train network, energy networks, all sorts of things. This is the very beginning of the oil booms around the world. So this was like, they really moved Iran forward in a little more so in the modern age. But it was very much a military government, okay? But there were also a lot of social reforms and so on, right? Secular reforms. Not going to be a religious government, per se. So then, at the beginning of World War II, he started to get a little cozy with the Germans, and the British didn't like that, and the Soviet Union didn't like that, and the Americans didn't like that, so we booted him out, and his son took over. And his son, when you hear people, if you ever hear the history of Iran and people talk about the Shah, who they're talking about is the son. So it's Mohammad Reza. And I actually had his great nephew, the Shah's nephew in class years ago. Man, it was really fascinating. Okay, so he took over. All right. Then in 1953, there was, people were in Iran were going like, okay, man, we want to have elections. We want to move forward in a lot of different ways. So there were some politicians who were really pushing the government in different ways, and the Shah tried to just really push some guy out. There ends up being a coup, and the Shah has to leave Iran in 1953. But the CIA, because now oil is really important, and Iran has, although we didn't know it at the time, Iran has the world's fourth largest reserves in petroleum and the second largest reserves in natural gas. So you can imagine, man, the world's going like, yo, Iran, it's like Venezuela. It's like that's a place you really want to be able to control, especially in the 1950s, because of where Iran is located in the Cold War. So the West is battling the Soviet Union and one thing after another. So the CIA gets involved and they put him back into power. MI6 and the CIA. And MI6 is the Secret Service of the British government. And so now the Shah's back in power. He continues with these reforms, but he develops this organization, this secret police organization called the Savak. I call it Savak. I don't know what Iranians call it, right? And so he's pushing forward more secular reforms, land reform, education reforms, liberties. Women are, we're just like in the West, Iranian women wearing mini skirts and bikinis and not having to cover. It's like, it's not religious at all. But there's a whole religious movement going on underground of very conservative Muslims who are trying to get in there and be like, this is too secular, we don't want this, it's very similar to Christian nationalism here in the United States. There's a lot of Christians who would like to see this country be a Christian nation, and man, they got a very different vision about what the United States would look like than the vast majority of you. And so that's similar in Iran, similar thing, right? So 63, they have this, what's called the White Revolution, but the Shah's ruling a great deal through force. And the fear of Savak, man, they were like a brutal organization. If you got out of line, you were just in deep trouble, right? So a lot of brutality. And also the up and down with the economy. They pushed out the Ayatollah, who was the main religious leader. He was now in exile. They kicked him out of the government for, I think, 15 years, if I remember correctly. And they kicked him out of the country. And he was living abroad thinking, like, okay, he'll settle down, he'll shut the F up, and we can just run things. But things just continue to spiral economically and politically, and eventually the country collapsed. I think the Shah had cancer, as I remember correctly, left the country, and it's just a problem. Things collapse. You may have heard the story of how the Iranians, civilian students in particular, took Americans hostage, some 50 plus Americans hostage in the embassy, and they held them for 400 days or something, right? This was really intense. Like, it was a big thing. Meanwhile, we're in there playing the games, man, because we want access to the oil and natural resources and so on and so forth. Anyway, the Ayatollah Khomeini comes back, and now we're gonna have a Muslim government in Iran, right? It's all gonna be run. We're gonna run this according to it's the Islamic, what do you call it? The Islamic Republic of Iran, is that it? Islamic Republic of Iran, okay? So anyway, that's it, 79, now here we are. Decades later, we're still trying to figure this all out and work it out, and now things have reached another peak, okay? That's our story. That's where we got. So my reason for telling you that is to say, hey, look, we've been involved in Iran for a long time. So, like, for example, once the CIA brought the Shah back in and MI6, that meant the Shah's future and the United States' future, by way of the CIA and the military, they were completely intertwined. So he could not have ruled without us. So we gave lots of arms, shipments of arms, the training of the Savak, the secret police, and so on. We're all in this together, okay? And it's not easy to do that in 5 minutes. And I think the idea that the thing that's really important for me is to see that, we've had a hand in Iranian history, and we have a hand in how we got to this present place. And I think that's always really important to say and to see and to understand. It's really important that we see this is a global system, and we can imagine that. Okay. Let's introduce. You can go to. Let's introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Della. I'm an Iranian student, a senior, and I'm also a TA. I'm sure you guys have seen me before.
And you're from your family. You're from Tehran.
Yeah, I'm from Tehran, and I grew up in Tehran as well.
Okay. Wait, how do you say it? Tehran.
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 Yeah, Tehran.
Tehran.
Yeah.
Okay.
That kind of. Yeah.
All right.
Hi everyone, my name is Dina. I'm a fourth year PhD candidate now, since of last semester, in biology, and I did my undergraduate degree at the University of Tehran. I grew up in Tehran and lived for 10 years in Isfahan, which is the second biggest, the biggest city in Iran. And even in my PhD, a lot of my research is on the Middle East. So I have a project on Syrian ancient DNA and another one on Iranian ancient DNA. Yeah.
So you came to class last semester, right? At some point, or last year?
I was actually volunteering your class in my second year, so it was 2 years ago.
And then you reached out to me, and I said, "Oh, listen, we're gonna do a class on Iran. Come back." Yeah, that's very.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's great to have you here.
Hi, my name is Arda. I was born in Iran, moved here like 4 years ago. Sophomore right now in computer science.
Wait, how long you been speaking English, bro?
I mean, they teach you English in school, but like...
Yeah, but no one ever learned. I learned Spanish in high school.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It gets better when you move here like at a younger age.
Yeah, but you don't even have an accent.
I don't know. I used to watch a lot of like movies and like social media. I think that helped.
Have you developed an accent in Farsi?
No.
Hang on. We're going to let them be the judge. Say what everything you just said, introducing yourself in Farsi.
سلام، اسم من آرتا. من تهران به دنیا آمدم. 4 سال پیش اومدم آمریکا. I don't think I have an accent.
Legit, very, very like typical Tehran accent. Yeah.
Tehran accent.
Like
So
I still speak like Farsi with my parents, obviously, and like yeah.
Wait, do you say
Well,
Farsi
Farsi is
or
like what we
Persian?
say in Iran, but Persian is like what we say in English. I mean, it's the same thing.
Okay, so okay.
Kind of like the same thing as some people here say Iranian, some people say Persia, Persian. It's the same.
Got you. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I always say Farsi.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like, yeah.
But Iranians are always saying Persian. You know, it's like everyone's like different around.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that's cool. Hey, if you could describe I'm going to say Iranian culture from here, right? If you could describe Persian culture in just like a few words, like what would you say? What do you think people would be? I'm going to have each one of you say something. So, who wants to go first? Arta, why don't you?
In a few words, I don't know.
Okay, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. I say like there's a lot of stuff about respect, especially with like older people, that like you see that shift when you come here. I don't know, like whether it's to your like professors or like even in Iran, if someone's like 2 years older than you kind of have to put a respect if it's like your older siblings or anything.
Do you do it with the conjugation of the words of verbs?
Not just words. It's like we have a whole lot of stuff. There's this thing it's like famous in Iran. It's called taraf.
Taraf.
Yeah. So it means that like when I'm offering you something, you have to say no like 3 times.
Yeah.
And like my parents get here, and then someone's trying to gift them something, and they say no. And then they say, "Oh, okay," and then they're like, "Wow, how rude!"
Yeah, how
like,
rude is
yeah,
that?
Yeah.
Dude, you guys have that too, right? That seems like it's a
but it's
thing.
like we have a word for it. It's funny, yeah.
Yeah, but it's really big and
yeah, it's pretty big. Yeah.
I learned that from my first Iranian friends.
Yeah.
Like I was informed about that. Yeah. All right, that's pretty cool. How about?
So just following up on that, we actually like the entire grammar changes. So like if you're familiar with German, we use a third person plural when we talk to people who are at a higher position. Like this could be social, age. That's like a whole different structure of the language. But if I want to say a couple words to describe the Persian culture, I would say maximalist, hospitable, and very prideful.
The hospitable side is definitely see that. And prideful. And you have a lot to be proud of. Like you don't if you don't understand Persian culture, Persian culture is central to Western civilization. Iran was right at the head, the two heads of the Silk Road, so the East and West. It's like, okay.
I think they sum it up. Like they said it like completely.
How about family?
What do you mean like by
How
family?
important is family?
It's very important for us. Like some might say like family is way more important than friends or like other type of relationship. At least like for the people I know, and most of the people in my country at least think like that. I don't know if they agree or not, but
yeah, that's completely true. We're very family oriented.
How about education?
Education is like super important. Like, yeah.
It's very, 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 very important, and they are very like it's. You will know at the age of 5 how important it is for you to become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer.
Yeah.
Also, if you have like only a high school diploma, it's like you just don't have like nothing. Like high school diploma is like being a dropout. Like literally, if you have like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just disrespectful for parents to tell another person that, yeah, my kid only has a high school diploma.
And they wouldn't even admit
like
that.
They will be like, why are you even like?
Or even like
about
sociology major. Like,
or even an undergraduate degree is not enough.
So
it is not enough.
Yeah.
You need to have a master's degree or a PhD. Like an undergraduate degree is like not enough at all for you to go anywhere. by the, Iranian
And is
standards.
Okay, so go even to across the board in Iran, not just in Tehran. Tehran. How's that? All right. How about just across the board though? Like,
I mean, that is everywhere. Like, even in school, like, it's super competitive. Like, we have, like, rankings for every, like, when like, if a student is, like, doing bad, like, the school is going to put him out there like he's doing bad. And, like, it's all, like, academics, too. Like, here in the U.S., like, you got scholarships for, like, different sports. They get, like, a D1 athlete, such a big thing. But, like, you might be, like, the best soccer player in Iran. But, like, if you don't do well on that one test, which is called concours, which is similar to, like, SAT, but, like, that's the only metric. Or you have, like, some other stuff, like, I don't know, military and stuff. You can't, like, get into a good program.
So you could be the best soccer player in the country, but if you flunked out on your tests,
it's just, like, academics,
Yeah.
I will say something because I did do my undergraduate degree in University of Tehran. It is that it's actually more of a thing if you're not from the bigger cities, because the idea is that if you come from a less privileged background, then the one thing that you can do for yourself to make a name for yourself and go anywhere is just through education. So I was at the, quote unquote, best university in the country, where we had in concours all of the students who were in, like, maybe the top 100 people in the country in their major. Around, like, my rank was around 500 in the country nationwide, and that was considered to be low, not a good rank. So you can imagine what kinds of students go there. And the friend who sat next to me, her parents were illiterate, and she was from a village in a very rural part of a very, like, no-name province in Iran. And then when you spoke to our professors, a lot of them also came from backgrounds where their parents were farmers and maybe they didn't have an education. So that's pretty common.
Yeah, that's intense, man. That's very unique, by the way. Yeah, very unique. Hey, what's the biggest misconception about Iran?
First thing I hear is, like, they think we speak Arabic. It's a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
I think they were Arabs.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And also the second thing that I think, it's that everybody thinks that our country is, like, poor, and we're, like, not that educated, and, like, our English, the way we act, and, like, our religion, and, like, every other thing, like, they think that we're very strict, and,
Very
like,
backward.
and then that we hate Americans, to be specific. Like, I think, like, something that, like, everybody here thinks a little bit, at least the ones that know about Iran, is that they think that we, like, hate Americans or, like, Europeans or, like, other things like that.
That's going to be my next question, actually, on that. How about what would you say is the biggest misconception?
I would say one of the things that I've seen slightly start to shift in the past couple of years, which I'm grateful for, is that I feel like all of that, besides the Arab thing, which is very true, I think most people assume that we're Arabs and we're not. We're ethnically different.
Nothing wrong with being Arab.
Absolutely not. I have a lot of Arab friends, but we're ethnically different groups. And we do have an Arab community in the south, but the majority are the people who are Fars, and we're, like, an entirely different ethnic group. And I think a lot of it also comes from the fact that we write using the Arabic alphabet, but it's a different language. And it's a whole story, but I want to say a lot of the values that I think people associate with Iran and Iranian culture is mostly, as I think one of the videos that you had showed, what is mostly narrated through the media, which is a lot of the values that are reflected through the governments, and then the people are not like that at all. Like, if they know you're American, they're actually going to love you so much.
Okay, wait, hang on. We're going to ask this question. Yeah, first off, I want to say something to the class, actually more to the stream. I want to talk to the camera for a second. There's a lot of stuff happening in Iran right now, okay? And we're not going to talk about that. Right, because we don't need to talk about it. There's nothing that we say up here is going to change anything that's going in Iran with the Iranian government and U.S. government and Iranian government and so on. We're not going to talk about that. So we're not going to ask them questions about it. What do you think about your government? That kind of stuff. We're not there. We don't have to do that. So we won't do it. So I just want to say that. Okay. Okay. Now, I want to say this. So I first started traveling in the Middle East about 15 years ago, Okay, so I've made many trips, and was invited to Iran 2 different times actually, and one time by the Ministry of Education, and I got invited to go to Home. How do you say home? How do you say
Qom.
home?
Yeah, Qom.
This is like the conservative place where all the Ayatollah, all the religious people, we were going to have dialogues because we had dialogues with World in Conversation with Iranians. And so I talked to people in the State Department and so on. Anyway, the high up people in Qom invited me to come give a talk. The Iranian government rejected my visa. Like, so I'm
So
still
sad.
I'm still salty about that, by the way. I'm like, me? Well, what did I ever do? Okay, so anyway, what I found when I started traveling in the Muslim, Arab areas, Arab Muslim countries, is that people would say, make a distinction between a government and a people. And they'd be like, no, yeah, we don't really like your government, and we have a problem with your government, but you're okay, you're Americans, like, we love you. And this was true even in Palestine, so even traveled in Palestine. I traveled in Palestine with my Jewish friend, and who's wearing, like a Star of David, and we're traveling, and Palestinian Arabs would be like, oh, you're Jewish, you Americans? And be like, yeah, we're Americans. Oh my God, oh, great. Oh, we hate your government. But you guys, hey, come have tea, have sweets, like, oh my God, right? Most people will say, oh, I make a distinction between the people and the government. But most people don't really do that. But Arab Muslims really did that. They really made a distinction. They were able to hold that in their minds. So when you say Iranians, no, if you're Americans, they'll love you. Do they really, or do they blend the two?
No, they actually do. Like, the government and us, again, we're like very like boldly say that we're 2 different like type of people, or whatever you want to put it in. But yeah, we do. We love every other country, to be honest. We just like foreign people. Like, we just like, and Americans, we do love you guys, whoever is American here. It's just the way they show it to the media. And
that's a misconception. Right?
Yes.
I'd say honestly, kind of depends. Like, the young generation, totally. Like, I would say like 90% like would never have like that thought of like, I don't know, hating the people from other countries. But I think there definitely exists some people, especially older people, that will have the hatred towards like people from other countries. I think like this is like a selective group that is in the United States that's already like, this doesn't represent the entire country. There's definitely some people that are like that, but I think the younger generation that is like more exposed to media would not have that.
Yeah, and I found a similar thing. I mean, as I talked to older people, they held certain prejudices that they couldn't make a distinction. That, like, wait, hang on, the American people are not the American government.
Yeah.
But so it was harder for them, much easier for people who were younger.
I will say, especially when it comes to the older generations, it kind of comes down to what side of the political spectrum they're from.
Got you.
Because that's a revolution generation. So you'll run into a lot of people who love Americans and they have family in the US and they would love to visit. And then you'll have some people who are a little bit more reserved. But my experience is that I've never, even in like the more, pro-government, if like for lack of a better term, group of people, they don't have anything against American people, and most people actually really love Americans. They find the country to be fascinating, and like the American dream is very big. I will say that.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. It's so interesting. And I think, well, what we're gonna see, we're gonna show a video. I think actually, if Americans understood other parts of Iran, there would be an Iranian dream also. Like, Isfahan, I dream of walking through the big square in Isfahan. Oh my God.
I will say, as somebody who lived there for 10 years, it is as awesome as it looks. It's absolutely incredible.
God.
And you will have little school children come and ask for your signature because you're a foreigner.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Isn't that, man, that's cool. If you want to see a really impressive place, look up the main square in Isfahan in Iran. It's the second largest city, right? And We used to have dialogues in Isfahan here, and we've had many guests come in from Iran, actually. Okay, so let me ask you this. How's crime in Iran?
Well, I can say it, but I'm not really sure if it's okay or not. But I will say crime within the cities by civilians is very low. You'll get a slightly higher crime rate in larger cities, as you do.
Yeah.
There are cities where there is no crime. So like the part of Isfahan where I lived, I was like 10, 12 years old, and I would go out at like 3 a.m. in the morning. My parents wouldn't be worried. I wouldn't be worried. There was no issues. The majority of the crime that happens is not by the civilians, but just as much as I will say about it, because we don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Oh, so it's like there's like bureaucracy crime. Okay, all right, yeah.
And then I would say most of the crimes that happen is really due to need. Like, there's not a lot of like hate. Like there's not a lot
Like
of
violent
murders.
crime
Yeah,
and
not
stuff.
a lot of violent crimes. They're like, there's a lot of
petty crimes. Yeah, just
Yeah.
petty crimes.
Like people stealing.
stealing phones is like very
Yeah.
common. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but I mean, like, I don't know. It's not. It's different from the U.S.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, Iran's been under sanctions from the
Yeah.
West for how many
Yeah.
decades now, right? I mean, the economy in Iran is really suffering because of that. So.
And that's been more of a increase over the past, I want to say, decade, when the sanctions really started to hit really, really
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
But it is still at that capacity of just petty theft, maybe petty crimes.
So if I'm like, so for example, I'll give you, so we're going to be we said we're going to be live streaming from Bogota, right? And I'm talking to Julie, and we're kind of planning out, okay, where are we going to be in Bogota? I can't just be in the park in Bogota holding my phone like this, and I have my other camera, and we're going to have this little satellite dish and stuff. We can't do that because someone will come along on the chances of someone coming along on their bike and just grabbing it are pretty high.
I will say in Tehran, if it's just you holding your phone, the chances of somebody just grabbing it on a motorcycle or a bike is pretty high. But if you have equipment somewhere, then not really, no.
Okay, can I add something to
Yeah.
that? It really depends which which side of Tehran you live in. So mid to upper town of Tehran, respectfully, that really barely happens.
exactly.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Down,
Like the video that we're gonna watch.
yeah,
in
but
a
like
couple
if you
minutes.
go more down, obviously, like any other country or any other city in
Yeah.
the world, that would be the case.
All right, let me ask you
Center of the city, so I'm like in the middle.
this. Yeah. Okay. Hey, by the way, can I just say something to you all? Do you like? I see a couple people, like a few people looking at their phones and stuff. Do you realize how is it awesome to be able to hear? What a gift it is to be able to have this conversation. Nice hair, by the way. I like this color better. But all right. Do you how about guns? Do civilians own guns?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no one owns guns.
Not at all. It's like they don't also want to hold guns.
Yeah.
Like they just don't want to do that. And also it's like illegal, obviously, but they don't see the need, and as well as they don't mentally want it as well. So they don't really.
Okay, how about this? How about how often so you got this divide, right? You have the secular Iranians, which the three of you clearly are secular Iranians, right? And then you have the religious Iranians who are, kind of like very much in the United States, like I talked about Christian nationalists and so on. And, Christian nationalism it's a very complex thing. I don't even know what it means. I couldn't even describe what a Christian nationalist believes, because people who would identify as Christian nationalists believe so many different things, you know what I mean? Well, same with Muslim nationalists. And so people believe so many different things. But there is a secular divide between secular and religious. How evident is that if I'm in Iran, how evident is it that I'm with someone who's really religious and Islam focused, or I'm with someone who's pretty secular?
Sorry, do you want to go first?
No, go ahead. I feel like I'm gonna say something and they're gonna disagree. So who
All
knows?
right.
Yeah, because my side is different. But yep.
Yeah, so I, like during my undergrad years, I had a couple of roommates who were very conservative Muslims, to the level that when we would go out together, people wouldn't believe me if I said I was friends with them. It was a whole thing because I was like very much like the ladies you see in the video, and then they were like.
So you weren't hijabi? You didn't wear.
Well, I mean, now the force of hijab has kind of, it's a bit more loose ever since the stuff that happened a couple of years ago. At the time, I definitely had to cover my hair, so that was definitely a big thing.
Did you
like
seriously
colorful?
cover?
No. Just like it was there, so the shawl that I had to wear, the hijab quote unquote, was there, but not tight. You could see all of my hair. My outfit was pretty short. Like the sleeves were short. The dress was a dress, but it was short, and it was like colorful. And they were like pretty much in the, like if you see religious Iranian Muslim women, that's how they dress. And we would go out together and it was like people wouldn't believe me. So I would say even within the people who are religious, it's not necessarily that. It's more of like, okay, so you're religious, but are you pro-government or are you anti-government? It's not like just because you're religious does not automatically translate to that. And I've also partially seen the other side as well, though less evident, that even if you're secular doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be anti-government, though it's a smaller proportion. So I guess less of a religious thing, more of a perspective about the government structure.
I would like to add to that. She's pretty right about it. But also like something that I would add to that is that both sides of people in Iran also are fine with each other. It really depends again on the government. It's not like you can have a family member that could be like fully a job, like type of thing, and then you can have a family member that really doesn't care about any of this.
Yeah, it's all fine. Like people respect, like we all kind of have come, especially I want to say the new generation, we've all kind of come to the understanding that you believe whatever you want to believe, as long as I respect you and you respect me, we're all good. So
that's very, those of you who are Christians, by the way, in the U.S., it's very similar, right? I have two of my siblings are very Christian, and one of my siblings is very not Christian, and I don't know what I am, but we get on, it's all good. Yeah, so it's very similar. Okay, it's just like everywhere else, right? Is your family pretty secular?
Yeah, I would say so. But like, I was gonna say this, like, same as they said, like, I don't know, I have family members that like they pray, but like, I don't know, I wouldn't really consider them Muslim, but like, people ask like what I am, I'm like, I don't know, am I Muslim? Like, if I'm in this class, like, I don't know, in front of like all these people like in this country, like, there's some loose definition of like what makes a Muslim.
Yeah.
And I think I can't identify myself, or I can't identify my parents as Muslims.
Same with what makes a Christian.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is considered by many people to be a Christian.
Yeah.
And by other people, Donald Trump would be like, wait, he's a Christian? Like, wait, what?
Yeah,
What's
like,
what
makes you Muslim or like Christian? Is it just you pray or like read the Bible? Like,
yeah, I got you. Okay, so like on TV talk shows, are you gonna have like different?
The TV is different because they have rules. And
TV is government, our TV is state TV.
So the secularists are not represented on television?
It's the government's TV, so they reflect the government perspective.
Yeah, okay.
Like solely the government perspective. That's the state TV, so.
But it's funny, like we have TV shows where like you might see like some scenes without like no hijab or stuff. Like you can see the difference like clearly when it's like not really restricted by the government that much.
Got you. Yeah. I've watched Iranian television shows. And I was invited onto an Iranian television show, actually, and I wasn't able to do it. But so that clearly was not if they're inviting me on, I'm like, damn, all right. Okay, hang on, let's keep going here. This is pretty cool. Hey, let me show you a few slides. Can we go to the next? So here are some headlines. I just pulled these off. The ones on the bottom are actually from an Indian newspaper website. You know, I mean, here's this TV host. Levin calls Iran a concentration camp. I don't know what he means, but when you see stuff like that, this guy's calling Iran a concentration camp. Do you just roll your eyes? Like,
I'd be like, politics is politics no matter where you go. It's just a different direction depending on where you are.
But then on my side, because I'm a little bit more proud or whatever you would call it, I'm like one of those Iranians that if you say something bad about Iran, I will be coming murdering you.
Yeah.
Like zero logic about that, in my opinion. So I would actually get like very pissed. Like I didn't even look at this right now. Like I tried to look at people because it would really piss me off, and like it has to be, everything has to be good.
Well, given what you're saying, I could see how it would be really unsettling, you know, like to see. So Iran dares Trump in final warning, you know, and Trump dares Iran, and it's just like, oh shit, nothing will be left. Trump warns Iran. Nothing will be left. What does that mean?
See, the thing is, you see this, and then we also read Farsi. So if you look at the Iranian news, it's like, oh yeah, this is funny. So they say this, and then the Iranian news says the exact opposite in Farsi. I'm just like, oh, okay, this is funny. So to me, it's just funny.
What do you mean they say the exact opposite?
So like, if let's say Trump is threatening the Iranian Ayatollah. On Iranian state TV, Iranian Ayatollah is threatening him. So it's like
you got to take the average. Like you see both sides, and the truth is like the average.
And they're gonna be like, oh, they can't do anything. This is all like stuff that they want to convince themselves that they have power. Like
it's just like here, right? But when you see this stuff, you guys must. I mean, be your family.
There. We kind of like used to it. Like I would say a very small percentage of the news that we see is like actually like true. Like, I don't know. For me, like it's like, oh, okay, like just one of those headlines. It's
so
like
you
used to it.
So here we have this idea of fake news.
Yeah.
And in Iran, people have this idea of Iranians have a fake news.
Most of them,
too.
yeah.
Huh. Okay, but this, how are you doing though? Just the three of you. You have family there. So how are you doing with this is build up to war. It seems very possible that we're going to be dropping more bombs in Iran. Like, how are you?
I personally have all my family there, like my parents, my sister, like everybody, because I'm like an international. I do have family here, but I'm an international student. So if you ask me personally, I'm like actually going through it because of everything's that happening. I'm very much worried about everything's that happening, but also like the things I see here in the news is like much different than what is actually happening. But for your question, all I can say that I'm actually like very worried because like I can see, like I can talk to my mom and the little things that they mention, like doesn't matter this or like the prices of like food, all of those stuff. Not to say, but I'm just saying, not for my family or any other things, but like an average life for every other people, like most people maybe that are going through it. So it is pretty concerning.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a little more direct. I think my experience has been the first time that you come here and it happens, it really hits you really hard. And then when you're here for a couple of years and this happens every 6 months, the thing that I learned is that life here doesn't stop and people can feel like sorry for me and they can understand, but I still have to live my life. And the thing that at some point my parents told me, because I used to completely break down, was that we've lived through situations like this all our lives and you have to trust us that we know how to take care of ourselves. And I think the worst of it was during the summer when there was a period of a week when I was completely not able to contact them. And it was the same week that I had to go to a international conference and present my research. And my parents are refusing to leave Tehran, and my brother is at a military facility because he was doing his mandatory military service. And all I had to do was that I'm going to trust them, that they know how to take care of themselves and they're going to be okay. And I will talk to them eventually. And if the worst comes to pass, I will deal with it. I will address it once it happens. But I just don't let my mind go to the worst case scenario because that is just going to destroy me. So that's how I approach it. But yeah, it's not fun every single time that this happens. You're wondering, well, am I gonna have all of my family and friends still after this is over, or is somebody gonna be missing?
Yeah, man, I feel that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I talked to a few of my friends too, like that live in Iran, like right now, a few days ago. It's just like most people are like kind of numb, like there's a possible chance of war, but like at the same time they're like are just doing their own things, and they're like, it's kind of like a lose-lose situation. Like if it happens, it's gonna be bad. If it doesn't happen, it's gonna be bad. Like they're kind of numb, you know.
Yeah, life just moves on.
Yeah, and like
crazy thing.
The only thing they have is right now. They don't know what's gonna happen in the future. They're just gonna enjoy it, you know.
Yeah. Hey, can you go to the next slide? I want to show you this. No, forward. Yeah, right there. There's a building in there. I pulled this off. Have you guys seen this photo?
That's kind of close to where I live. So I used to cross that square. That's the Valley Astor Square. It's a pretty big place, and it was close to my university. It's close to where we live. A couple buildings actually from that side is where my mom works. So yeah, definitely.
So, and I see that in the English version of that is if you sow the wind, you will reap the whirlwind. So that's one of these kind of Iranian threats toward kind of got to pump up. And I just want to note that none of those women are not covered, by the way. Just want to point that out. Can you hang on, let me see another one. I want to see where we want to go. So here, can you go to the next slide? These are, I want to say this. You know, for those of you who think, you know, you go back to the headlines. Right there. This is the kind of stuff that people see, and that they won't go past the headlines. But now go forward, go back to that slide. Here's this article from Foreign Affairs, and Foreign Affairs is one of the kind of premier foreign policy journals in the United States that's meant for average people, not just people in the State Department. So, but you know, Iran and the limits of American power. I mean, you know, really a very interesting and thoughtful assessment of what's going on in Iran. But this is the kind of thing that most of us here won't read. We won't find that article, and we won't read it, and we won't think through it. We'll see those clickbait headlines, and then we'll just stick with those. But this is actually a really kind of a thoughtful analysis by this guy. Can you go? Okay, can we go one more? Okay, so these are scenes that we see. What do we see, right? We see all the women on the left. We're all covered, all very religious. We see that. Those are the pieces of Iran that we like to show. We see the Ayatollah. What's his name? Ali Khamenei.
Ali Khamenei, yeah.
Khamenei. Okay, so he's your supreme leader, right? And there's I think in the lower left is the president was giving a talk, and that's actually they're on stage, and the woman is signing too. It's just sort of like this universal things that we all have in common. The president is speaking to the Congress, I suppose, probably. I don't know who he's speaking to, actually, because I didn't see that. But it's being broadcast, and there's somebody signing. So I just want to hold that. There's just something about that just grabbed me. And then we see this image of somebody burning a flag. Okay? So those are the things that we get. All right, so now I want to watch this video. And tell us where this video is.
Actually, that is close where I live. It's called Ferishte.
That's Ferishte.
It's in District 1. And it's like, I would say, so we have this thing in my country that people our age or a little bit older or younger, depends, because everything's kind of illegal in there, I would say. So we try to like do hangouts, guys and girls go to cafes, smoke hookah and all that. So that one of the cafes that's showing in that video, it's going to be one of those cafes, but it's like early in the morning or like afternoon, I would say.
Wait, you smoking hookah? What do you put in the hookah? Just tobacco?
Just tobacco.
Not the good stuff?
No, I mean, if you want to and you're like
But that has to be in private.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you can't do that
okay,
in
hang
the
on. We're
public
going to
space.
talk about that in a second. Okay, so make sure, stream team, turn the volume off. Well, this is just an Instagram reel, so is it showing up? We could play it through a couple times too, because it's only about 40 seconds. There's a lot of videos about Iranian nightlife, man, that it was on. So listen, so here's the thing. The one thing that I learned early on about Iran, when I remember I was an undergrad and I met my first couple of Iranian friends. They were studying at the university. Go forward one slide. Yeah. Oh, by the way, these are women in the 70s at that period of.
That is at the university that I studied in my undergrad.
Oh,
it's
really?
at the University of Tehran, yeah.
Okay. All right. So go forward one more slide. So here's one of these videos, right? Come on. How come no one's covered, man? Why aren't the women covered?
This is a very new thing. It was not like this the year that I left. It happened right after the 2022 Women Life Freedom Movement, and this is. You will see this level only in Tehran, and I think at some point the morality police just gave up because.
Wait, they just gave up.
Yeah, because
the
the moments that when it got to the point when if they approached a woman who wasn't covered, they would be attacked, and they were smaller in numbers. So in Tehran, they stopped bothering the women, but in other cities, it's not like that.
Yeah, because I think they're a little bit scared in Tehran because we're like a little bit of a stubborn society, I would say. So if we want something, we're just not gonna stop, and I think they're a little bit scared, so they just stopped it. But I know some of my friends in like other cities, they are like this. I'm not saying they will be like exactly like this, but they would put their like scarves and everything on their shoulders. They would still like the things that we'll wear to like cover their body will be till like here, not like this, that's not fully there, but they're going through it. Like they will probably in like a couple of years.
I want to say even 2 years ago when I visited home, it was not to that level. So they still had to have the hijabs, at least like the girls would have it around their necks, but it had gotten kind of to the point that they were not wearing long dresses anymore. And also depends on where you are. So fun thing about Iran is that in Tehran, depending on where you are in the city, you're going to be dealing with less or more morality police, and also depends on whatever is going on in the society.
Got you. Okay, so the morality police, Dr. Silver, this is for you, right? The morality police are people that are going around just watching and making sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, like not putting special things in their hookah, for example. Right?
Also, yeah, this isn't just for women. It's like back, like I don't know, maybe 6 years ago, like men like couldn't even wear shorts and stuff. Like,
yeah,
it's just funny.
Yeah, no, same. Like in the Khaliji region, right, in Gulf countries, similar. Like I wear long sleeves. My wife wouldn't walk around with sleeveless shirts, kind of thing. If she did, she got called out a couple times, man. She was wearing sleeveless shirts, and I'm like, all right,
Right now, probably I wouldn't go to jail or die, but if you would say like 5-6 years ago, if I wanted to walk like this, I would just like literally the morality police would get me, and I would die. They would just get me and then like potentially do something with me. And
so it would be a problem.
It would be a very huge problem.
Yeah, I have a very good case of this 2 weeks ago before the Women Life Freedom Movement was when I came to the US, and me and my friends were hanging out because they knew that I was going to come here, and it was like a group of three girls, and then 2 or 3 of my guy friends, and we were like friends from the university. And so we were sitting in we weren't really doing anything. We were just sitting on the grass in a park, just chatting. And that was the area where we knew that the morality police was going to be there. Fun fact.
Wait, hang on. Morality police, okay?
Yeah.
You speak faster than
Sorry,
I do.
morality police. Yeah,
Okay.
so we knew that they were going to be there because there had been reports, and we have this app that we know where they are in the city.
Wait, there's an app?
Like it's like the app they built for ICE.
Yeah, we just like tell our people, you gotta be careful where you're going.
Yeah.
Wait, hang on. If I'm going out, I can like jump on the app and be like, all right, listen, I'm good. I can take.
Yeah, it's called Gershad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you can look it up.
And the government knows about it, but whatever. They
You know,
can-
like in Waze, it shows you where the police is when
Yeah,
you're driving. It's
in
like
Waze.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. And then,
Oh, I
like, we
love
were
it.
just hanging out, and then the morality police came, and we knew that they were going to be in the area. So I was just like, guys, maybe we shouldn't be sitting here. And I had my full hijab, and I had like a dress. And then my two friends, they had their scarves around their shoulders. And so the police actually did come to take us in, and I was really scared because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving the country. I don't want to have a record because what if they stop me from leaving? And then at the time, one of my guy friends, he was doing his mandatory military service, and he happened to have been stationed at the city police. So he knew the guy above the guy who came to take us in. And so they had a chat, and he told my friend to like take all of us and leave that entire area, because they were gonna like sit in their van and they were gonna do like a loop, and if they came back and we were there, they would take us in. And so we just left that district altogether.
It's like on what she's saying in Iran, it's a really big thing. Connections, it's a really big thing.
Yeah. I
Like
can imagine.
if you like, this is gonna sound so bad, but like if in extreme cases, if you kill somebody and you know the right person, you won't go to jail.
Yeah, well, that's true everywhere, as we see.
It's
But
like-
people with connections seem to. So I guess that's what kind of the Epstein stuff is all
Oh
about.
yeah, but like in a smaller scale, like you can pay off a police officer if you get pulled over. Like
Yeah.
we just give them a gift and they're gone.
I used to have that when I lived in Mexico. I always just kept a certain number of pesos, like $10 worth of pesos with my passport. So when I got stopped, I would just give them the passport and give them the pesos. Wait, hang on. We're going to get you in a second. But I want to ask you this question. Okay, not you guys. Okay, not you guys. Because you guys are all cool. You're good. But how much, if I went to Iran, to Tehran, and I wanted beer, can I get it?
It's gotten way easier. Like I know my friends that like drink, and like it wasn't like this wasn't as often like maybe 5 years ago, but it's just getting like
So
easier
if
to
I want a
access.
bottle of whiskey, like
You
I
can,
was
you can find everything.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can find everything, but I will say it's illegal. So
Yeah.
if they catch you, that is very, very bad. And I will also say, because there is no regulation and a lot of stuff is homemade,
Yeah.
you want to be extremely careful. So that's a pretty common, like you can find alcohol, but again, it is illegal, so it's going to be expensive, and your best bet is just to get bottles that you are 100% sure they haven't been opened.
Yeah, it's very dangerous. Like people go blind because they get.
Yeah, I also want to add something to that. I don't know if they know or not, but there are specific cafes where I live, at least, that aren't cafes to start with. They're not cafes that everybody here is imagining. They're like more like
a
bars.
lounge.
Yeah, stuff like that. But you can like find alcohol if you know the person, like,
Got you.
and like they will be like, oh yeah.
And here's the thing. So I want to take some questions, by the way. Are there questions on the stream? It's true around the world. You can only police people to the degree to which they're willing to be policed. I mean, that's just how this stuff goes. Okay. Cybernetic.
Yeah, I would like to say something to that sense. It's like, I feel like for Iranians, laws are more of a suggestion.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of if you have a good way of going around it, that you're not going to be caught.
Yeah, I got you. That's true around. Cybernetic Qualinaut says, how has the rhetoric about Iran evolved over the years? How about that? That's actually a really interesting question. Do you have a way to answer that? Could you answer that? The rhetoric about Iran,
Like from media, you mean? Like
No,
what people talk about it? Or?
yeah, maybe even how people talk about it,
Yeah.
how Iranians talk about Iran or Israel. No, the rhetoric about Iran evolved. Yeah, so how has it evolved over the years, like with regard to Israel? Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a long story.
Do
Yeah.
people in Iran even really think about Israel?
Honestly, no. I mean, the people. It's like
People.
wait, yeah.
The people in Iran don't think about Israel?
No. Let me explain. It's like they don't think about the political. Like as we said, like we don't care about like Americans that
Yeah.
like we don't hate them. It's like a similar thing for like the people that it's like they're not super involved into the politics of it. It also depends like the kind of people that you're talking about.
So it's kind of similar. It's
Yeah.
similar with the U.S.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a thing that it's because we're also going through a lot ourselves. So I think
Yeah.
like at sometimes we don't have the time to even think about stuff like that
Got
because
you.
we're trying to handle our own stuff.
Yeah.
So
Got
he
you.
didn't mean it like that. Just to put it out there, he did not
Yeah.
mean it like that.
Yeah. No, I got you. Quick.
Yeah, I have a
That's also my point. Sorry, no, like I think I was just like, but like sorry. Before that, I will add. I think actually the fun aspect of the Iranian government is that the Iranian government has the stance on Israel as it's always had, which is extremely negative. But I think the fun change that I've seen within the people's perspectives is that they've kind of gone from, oh, this is government stuff, we don't care about this random country that we don't even know where it is, to now it's more positive, at least the group of individuals that I'm involved in. So it's definitely shifted from the neutral,
To more positive.
at least the part of the population that I associate with mostly.
No, my experience of Iranians is same with my experience of other Muslims. It's like it's the same thing that we talked about earlier. It's like you have the government, and you have the people. So it's like, yeah, Israeli, the Jews, it's fine. Israeli Jews is fine.
Yeah.
Wait, hang on. I want to go ahead.
I have a question that's a little bit of a
You
change
got
of
to make
speed.
it really fast because we're running.
I've seen photos of both modern and contemporary bricklaying and masonry within Iran, and it's absolutely stunning. What ways do you see Iranian art and culture within the country?
It's just a big thing that you're
Represented.
proud of, right?
Yep. Can you just repeat the first part of your question?
Yeah, I've seen lots of videos and photos of masonry and bricklaying within the country, both new and old, like new apartment blocks with beautiful, like, laid brick. In what ways does that, like, affect the art and cultural history of the country?
I think it's a very big thing because I think there was a certain shift towards more of like a minimalistic Western style of art and architecture and everything the past couple of decades, and then we moved more towards Iranianization. So if you look at more recent work, but whether it's the architecture or it's the art, everything is moving towards a more modernized version of our own culture. So if you go to like the district where these guys actually come from, there are a lot of new buildings, and there's a lot of the Iranian even calligraphy or like ceramic work incorporated in the cosmetics of like, you know, buildings where people live. And it's a very big thing in coffee shops, in restaurants, in
Oh, that's cool.
school, in
Yeah, that's very
everything.
cool. No, that's very, very, very cool. Bro.
So, as I remember, all three of you either are from or lived for a significant amount of time in Tehran. So do you notice a big difference between Tehran and the rest of the country, or like other big cities?
So I would say yes. Again, it depends what side of Tehran are we talking about, but I would say that they're working on Tehran way more than they're working on the other cities and the other parts of the country. But it really also depends what city in the country we're talking about. They focus more, like you would say, like the other cities that are more important, like art-wise, like what important things we have in there, tourist-wise. They would focus more on that, so it will be closer to Tehran compared to the other sides of the country, other parts of the country. So, but they're trying in general to make it more like Tehran, like more modern, or like rules and other stuff.
Yeah, it's really, wait, we're gonna go to another question. How are religious minorities treated in Iran?
By the people or the government?
By the people.
I mean, because of the way that the government approaches it, I think there is not a lot of conversation between religious groups, because in Iran, if you're not Muslim, you're not allowed to, advertise your religion. So they tend to keep to themselves. But typically, they've been like we're all fine with each other. I don't think there is any problematic perspectives towards like if you're Iranian Jew or if you're Iranian Muslim Sunni or if you're Zoroastrian, but they do not welcome people into their prayer times.
Got you. No, I knew some Iranian Jews who just refused to leave, man, because they were Iranian and they practiced their Judaism and they felt, they're like, I'm not leaving. Okay, is there one more question? Some folks are worried that the Iran regime change will fail, like in Iraq and Afghanistan. Yeah, you guys, that's
It's a really complicated question. Like no one can tell. Yeah.
Shit. That BZ the man, that's a really cool question. You can ask me that BZ on tomorrow in my office hours. I'd be happy to answer that question. Hey,
yeah, it's definitely not a discussion that you can wrap up in 2 minutes. There's a lot packed into that question.
It's a really, really cool question. Hey, thank you for coming. Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, nice.